All right, let's jump right into a huge topic that's on everyone's mind. What is the real difference between the AI we've known for years and this new kid on the block, generative AI? We're going to break down their core blueprints to see what truly, fundamentally sets them apart.
When you really get down to it, the difference between these two technologies boils down to one single question. Is the AI built to predict the future based on what's already happened? Or is it built to help us create a future that's never existed before? That's the core of it right there.
Okay, so let's start with what we're all familiar with. For years, what we called AI was basically a predictive engine. A really good way to think about it is like a highly skilled archivist whose entire universe is your organization's private library of data.
So this kind of AI was built to answer very specific, very narrow questions. It would sift through a company's own historical data, customer records, sales figures, all that stuff, to find patterns and make a really targeted prediction, like, hey, which of our customers are most likely to leave next month?
And the process was super clear, very linear. First, you had the repository, that's all of your company's data. Then an analytics platform would build a model to find the hidden patterns in that data. And finally, the application layer took that prediction and plugged it right into a business tool, maybe for something like a customer retention campaign. Now, what made this true AI and not just simple analytics was the feedback loop. The system actually learned. So if it got a prediction wrong, say it thought a customer would leave but they didn't, that result was fed back into the system to retrain and sharpen the model. This loop is what made it smarter over time. All right, now let's talk about the revolution. If traditional AI is our focused archivist, then generative AI is like a creative polymath. Someone with this impossibly broad range of knowledge who's amazing at synthesizing ideas and creating something totally new. So just remember, the archivist's world was small. Its knowledge was literally confined to the walls of one company's data library. It was definitely powerful, but its perspective was, by its very nature, super narrow and local. And this is the absolute game changer. Generative AI isn't trained on just one company's data. It's trained on what you could basically call data from Earth. We're talking about a massive, global-scale dataset of text, images, code, pretty much everything from across the entire internet. And because of that monumental shift in data, its whole purpose is different. It's not just about analyzing and predicting anymore. No, it's about understanding context, synthesizing information, and then generating something brand new. An email, a piece of code, a marketing slogan, even an image. The engine driving all of this is the large language model, or LLM. These are these foundational models that have basically ingested a huge chunk of human knowledge. They're general purpose by nature, which means they have this incredibly broad understanding, but they still need guidance to be really useful for a specific company's needs. Okay, so we've met our skilled archivist and our creative polymath. Now let's put them side by side to really hammer home just how different their fundamental blueprints are. This table really crystallizes the four huge shifts. First, look at the data scale. It goes from internal company data to global internet data. Then the model itself. It goes from being task-specific, like predicting churn, to being general purpose and foundational. How it adapts is also totally different. You go from retraining the entire model to just refining prompts and fine-tuning. And finally, the scope just explodes, from narrow analysis to broad, sweeping creation. Okay, so this brings us to a really subtle but absolutely critical difference. We mentioned feedback loops for both, right? But how they actually work is worlds apart. And this really gets to the heart of how you interact with and improve each type of AI. With traditional AI, your feedback is directly retraining that core model that lives inside your company. You're basically reteaching the archivist with new information. But with generative AI, you're not retraining that entire massive global LLM. No way. Instead, your feedback helps you get better at writing prompts and fine-tuning a much smaller layer. So you're not re-educating the polymath, you're just learning how to ask it better questions. So, this isn't just some technical detail for engineers to geek out on. This architectural revolution has massive, massive strategic consequences for how businesses operate and innovate. So what does it all mean in the real world? The biggest shift is that the whole architecture has flipped. Companies are no longer building their AI systems from the ground up, centered on their own internal data. The new strategy is to leverage these enormous externally hosted foundational models and then layer your own specific context right on top of them. And a huge opportunity here is what you could call democratization. You don't need a massive team of data scientists and a billion-dollar budget to build a world-class AI model anymore. Through APIs, even small companies can tap into the exact same incredibly powerful AI that used to be only for the biggest tech giants.
But, this new world isn't without its challenges. It creates a pretty heavy dependence on a handful of external providers. These models can also be way too general if you're not careful with your fine-tuning. And the fact that their training data is often a black box can create a lot of uncertainty and business risk, not to mention the high cost of using them at a large scale.
Okay, let's bring all this together. The shift from traditional to generative AI, it's not just an upgrade, it's a completely new playbook. We've literally moved from using AI as a tool for prediction to using it as a partner in creation.
So what's the ultimate takeaway here? The fundamental goal of AI has gotten so much bigger. It's no longer just about analyzing the past to tell us what might happen next. Now, it's about using all of that incredible knowledge to help us imagine, design, and actually create a future that has never existed before. And that leaves us with one final, massive question to think about. In a world where AI can generate art and code and business strategies, what's the new value of human creativity? Maybe the most important skill is no longer just creation itself, but the uniquely human ability to ask the right questions and to steer that creation with vision and purpose.